Guys, AI tools are great for writing code for games. I don't want you guys to think that if you don't write the code for yourself, then you're not a real developer, or that it's just AI slop. The players don't care about the code, they care about the experience of playing the game. So if you want to be some kind of hardcore developer who writes every single line by hand, who doesn't use game engines, who writes in pure C++, no, pure C, C++ is cheating as well, then you can do that, but I don't care what you do. I'm just saying that you can create high quality games by writing the code using AI tools, and you don't have to listen to those on Reddit who are hating on you for it. Now in this video, I wanted to talk a little bit about what I would do if I wanted to make a game from scratch if I didn't know how to code. So first thing, I would kind of decide what kind of game am I making. There are kind of two types of games you can make with AI that have very different paths of how you develop it. If you're making a game where it's mostly UI and kind of idle games or strategy games with a lot of menus and numbers and stuff, for example, I'm currently developing this kind of mobile game that is a, some kind of deck builder, auto battler style game. I really enjoy this genre personally, so I also like making games like this. I think it's really cool to see these massive battles of units battling it out. For games like these, you don't need a game engine and you probably shouldn't use one. It's much easier to just build a game like this using web frameworks, because the AI tools are so good at building out these games and also testing these games on their own. The AI tools can use unit testing frameworks and basic web development end-to-end testing frameworks to kind of simulate and play the game on their own. And they're really good at, clicking the UIs and testing the interactions. But also for the battles, they can simulate the battles through pure code. And you don't even need to know what that means, but it basically means that when they write the interactions for the game, they can test it out and make programmatic tests that make sure that the logic is fine and what is supposed to happen in the battles actually happens. And that is really good news for you, because it means that the AI tools will make far fewer mistakes when they can test their own outputs. The other option for games is games where you actually need a lot more interaction. Now, with the recent Claude Fable release or test release, I tried making more of a 3D action movement based game with it, and this is definitely also a possibility. But from my point of view, games like this, where you have potential issues like clipping through walls, handling complex visuals, this is not the way I would do games like these. A lot of these issues are very difficult for the AI tools at the moment to debug, so it's going to be very hard for you to prompt your way out of broken levels like these. So when the walls become walk-through and part of the level is hidden behind some wall with no collider, it's gonna be a real task and a pain in the ass to actually try to fix these using just prompting. For games like these, you instead want to use a game engine. So yeah, if you want to make a game like this or some other maybe 3D game where the actual game feel and responsiveness and the interactions are in big part, as well as if it has complex visuals or actual levels that are, maybe 3D levels that resemble real life, or just 2D levels where the actual animations and the layouts are very important, then using web-based development workflows might be very difficult because you don't really have control over how everything is set up. Now, even there, you can probably basically ask Claude to create you debugging and development tools, and that would basically be kind of like asking Claude to generate game engine tools into your web development project, which is fine on its own, but you could also just use a game engine and you would have those sorted out already before you get started with the game. Additionally, things like physics and the other game mechanics that are very often already implemented in engines, Claude would have to implement on its own, and there's a high risk that, for example, with the physics engines, there would be many mistakes and the quality of physics collisions wouldn't be as good as if you used a game engine. Now the game engine workflows also have their own issues. First of all, it's a lot more work to learn how to use this, and additionally, the game engines and additionally, the AI tools currently cannot interface with game engines quite as well as with the web development workflows. This basically means that you might have to do more work manually in the game engine, and it also means that the AI tools will not be as good at developing user interfaces for the games you're making. So you can see that the UIs in this game, for example, look a lot worse than what they look like in my web-based game. And that is just kind of a feature of these workflows. Currently, the AI tools for creating UIs for games are not meant for AI tools, they are meant for human designers. Now, I imagine that's gonna change. I imagine that in the future there will be tools that get the best of both worlds. Tools that can both build games in the engine, but also create high quality, web page style UIs for the games. And to me, that's really exciting. Not because we're gonna be seeing a lot more AI Slop and a lot more games out there. The part I'm also dreading. The part that I'm excited about is the fact that developers can now spend so much more time designing better games and iterating and making sure that their games actually play the way they want them to, instead of having to spend all the time writing code or building systems or fixing bugs in their games. Now, a lot of people say that if you don't know how to code, the games will end up broken and they won't be any good at the end, but I haven't seen that to be the case, and I don't know why that would necessarily have to be the case. People say that if you don't know how to code yourself, then you will always end up having bugs and you won't have the kind of ability to fix the games. And on the surface it's a good argument, but then again, assuming that if you did learn to code, that would actually fix anything is also pretty naive. Coding is difficult, and even if you did write all the code yourself, there would still be bugs in the game. There are bugs all the time in games made by humans who are good at programming. So if you, as a beginner game developer, would start by learning to code, it would take you like 5 years to get good at coding, and even then you would still be very likely to introduce bugs to your games on your own as well. So that's also to me like a non-argument. Bugs are a constant, whether there are more bugs when AI makes the game or when humans make the game. That is, of course, yet to be seen. And for like the AI Slop side, I do think there's a high risk of making AI Slop if you're making games with AI. You do want to be very mindful of keeping the kind of control of the outputs in your own hands. You want to always be in the driver's seat when designing the games. And that's a pitfall that it is very easy to step into, where you just let the AI design and you kind of take your hands off the wheel. So I do think it requires a lot of patience and discipline to make sure that the game is actually what you envisioned and not let AI do all the design decisions. Anyway, if you wanna make games yourself, even if you don't have any tech background, check out the link in the description. See you there.